to coin a very good Scottish phrase, wind your neck in, mate. The reality is that you've got a populist pretending that he's a peacemaker in Palestine, but when you strip back his language, all he's effectively saying is that the United States is going to be happy to back a plan which breaks the Geneva Convention, which is tantamount to ethnic cleansing. And it all sounds a bit colonial master to me. He's the president of the United States. He's not the president of the world. He doesn't get to decide what's happening everywhere at his beck and call. Now, I think the best way to deal with that is to be as blunt to Donald Trump as Donald Trump is to everyone else. You know, he might even respect that. So Keir Starmer needs to be a bit more firm. He needs to be clear with Donald Trump that this plan is not something which is going to wash. It's not something which we're going to support or back. But more than that, I think that this is now an opportune time, is it not, to recognise the state of Palestine. The Labour Party have previously said that they're going to do it. Why not now? Let's show our mettle in the face of Donald Trump's plans.
Sticking on Trump for just one moment there, I mean, how much credence do you give to his words? Because he has been known to, I think flip-flop might be a bit too trivial of a phrase, but he has been known to say some pretty outlandish things and then row back on them at a later date.
Yeah, but this is a pattern. This isn't the first time he's said something in relation to Gaza. And you know, if a real estate magnate is going to start talking about putting condos and turning Gaza into a Riviera, I think we should probably take that with the seriousness it deserves. In the exact same way we should be treating his response and his actions towards Denmark pretty seriously, and similarly towards Canada. You know, I think when it comes to populists, the best way to take them on is to take them on in language and in terms that they understand, and that's to being as blunt and forthright with them as they are with us. And you know, he's said some ridiculous stuff over the course of the last 12 hours. He's done so sitting in front of a 2-bar fire with the guy who decimated Gaza chuckling along beside him, a guy who, if his feet landed in the UK, would hopefully get lifted and taken off to The Hague to have his arrest warrant and properly imposed upon him. So, you know, take him seriously, but respond to him seriously, and maybe that way we can have a constructive working relationship.
Do you think that Starmer has responded correctly to the ICC's warrant on Netanyahu?
No. Has Keir Starmer responded properly to anything that's happened in the Middle East over the course since October the 7th and the devastating attack from Hamas? He had to be dragged kicking and screaming to back a ceasefire. I remember that really well, when he was the one who was saying it's okay for Israel to defend itself. It's got a right to defend itself. It doesn't matter if they cut off water and food and aid. It's okay for them to do that. I remember him saying that. He was on the wrong side of history then. He has the opportunity now to be very firm, but to go even further, to not just be firm with Donald Trump and tell him this isn't gonna work, but to say to him that, you know what, we oppose this to such an extent that you have motivated us to go and back the state of Palestine, to give it a recognition that it deserves, and then make sure that we have an actual plan in place to rebuild Gaza, to make sure Hamas aren't there, that they're not in charge, but to rebuild Gaza so people can get on with their lives in a safe way that we are also fortunate to enjoy.
One of the questions that he was asked today at Prime Minister's Questions was about UNRWA and about one of the hostages who was found in one of their facilities. Do you think that that's an argument for defunding UNRWA? I
think it's deeply concerning, and I think that UNRWA have got some explaining to do, but I am also conscious of the fact that most of the buildings in Gaza have been levelled, and I would expect that a terrible, horrific organisation like Hamas are going to make use of whatever facility is possible in order to try and continue to do what they were doing, which is keep hostages against their will. So there needs to be an investigation. I think UNRWA need to be clear about what hasn't happened, and whether they've been active within that. I would like to think that they haven't been, but ultimately, when we're talking about aid into Gaza, aid into Palestine, UNRWA are the only body in town. They're the only ones who are going to make sure that people aren't starving or dying of disease. So we need to make sure the funding's going there, but we need to make sure that they're also carrying out their responsibilities properly.
He was also asked today about by Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, whether he's spoken to the White House about Trump's comments yesterday. He didn't quite answer the question. How would you advise him to answer that question?
Well, I mean, it was a pretty long question, so he maybe just forgot what Ed Davey was asking him. But look, I don't think Ed Davey was as abrupt with the Prime Minister as he should have been today. I think he should have been saying to the Prime Minister, do you ostensibly oppose what the Prime Minister, what the President is suggesting here? Are you going to be clear with the British public that this is not something that you're in favour of? And are you going to go further than that and back the recognition of the State of Palestine? You had an opportunity to put Keir Starmer on the spot. He chose not to do that, and he afforded Keir Starmer the ability to talk about other things, justifiably talk about some other things as well. I think he did it with a bit of sincerity today for sure, but he left the door open. He wasn't firm, he wasn't clear, and he wasn't commanding. And, you know, that's what you expect from the Prime Minister, but he didn't deliver it today.
The ICC has advised that any politician that is aiding and abetting settlements in Palestine should be sanctioned. So should the UK look to sanction Donald Trump?
I think the UK needs to take a long, hard look at itself when it comes to its position more broadly in relation to what's happening in the Middle East and the role that we've played within that, whether it's the selling of arms to Israel to continually bomb civilians who are being collectively punished for the terrorist attack by Hamas, whether it's the fact that we had to be dragged kicking and screaming to backing a ceasefire, whether it's the fact that we had to be dragged into a position where we were clear about the language which was being used by some of the members of the Israeli cabinet in respect of some of their actions towards the people of Gaza, but also in the West Bank. And I think right now we need to be pretty clear about the fact that we're refusing to recognise the State of Palestine when we should. And I think if Keir Starmer wants to be bold, wants to be a leader and wants to take action, that's the best place to start.
But specifically on that relationship that the UK has with Donald Trump, I mean, there are reports that we're very close to a UK-US trade deal. Yeah. Would it be wise for Keir Starmer to now stand up to Trump? Would it be wise for him to sanction him? Or does none of that matter and he should just do potentially the right thing?
I think since the day I arrived in this parliament, I've been told that we're very close to a trade deal with the United States of America, and it's never materialised. It doesn't look like it's top of Donald Trump's agenda. I don't think trade deals are what he's looking for at the moment. It appears to be tariffs that he's looking at. The reason that the UK government is having to go cap in hand to Donald Trump in any case is because of the fact that they left the European Union and destroyed the economy, and whether you're Tory or Labour, you seem to be accepting of that position, which is absolutely nuts. So if we're going to talk about relations with America, we need to look at the wider picture of what we've accepted economically. On Donald Trump, yeah. I'm not sure there's a requirement right now to sanction
if he's aiding
Donald
and abetting
Trump.
Settlements.
I think what we should do with Donald Trump is be as ruthlessly blunt with him as he is with us. You never know, he might respect that, he might listen to that. Tell him that he's wrong, tell him what we think should be happening, and go a stage further and back the recognition of the State of Palestine.